Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jorgelina. Today I'm talking about vocal range. Now this is something that every single wants to expand the vocal range. We have to understand that there are two parts to this question. Vocal range and tessitura. They are not the same. The first one, vocal range, is how many notes you can sing. What is the lowest note you can sing? What is the highest note you can reach? Now that's not the same as vocal tessitura. Tessitura is how many notes you can sing with ease, comfortably. Now, these are two different things, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about that in this video. Now, this business of expanding your vocal range has three different parts of your development as a singer. If you are a complete beginner, first thing is to build the foundations of your mass dominant voice. In order to understand this business of the vocal range and the vocal tessitura, we need to get familiar with what the vocal registers are. There are a number of different vocal registers, but the main two registers that you are going to be working with as a singer are the mass dominant register, also called chest voice, and the tension dominant register, also called head voice. Now, I prefer to call it mass dominant and tension dominant because later on in the training, when you need to be very differentiated and get quite fancy at the way you use your voice, then the chest voice register and head voice register are going to be a little bit confusing. So for now, just know mass dominant, chest voice, tension dominant, head voice. I'm going to be talking about mass dominant and tension dominant. So the first stage in your singing journey, it has to be to make sure that you strengthen your mass dominant register. It doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but you need to look at things like, is your mass register too pushy, or if it is too breathy. So if you are speaking and you can hear some breath through your voice, that is a little bit too breathy, and you have to start your training by resolving that. That can take a little while because sometimes it can be because you have a pathology. Otherwise, it can be just because you are too shy. Either way, you need to strengthen your vocal muscle before you can discover the different registers in a healthy manner. Same applies if your voice is too pushy. If you talk like this all the time, then it's going to take you a little bit longer because you have more difficulty letting go of your voice, and that is what you need to get to that tension dominant register. If your voice is generally functional, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you are speaking and you don't feel that there is an extreme amount of push or that there is no breath coming through, then that is what we're going to talk about today, because fixing those issues can take a lot longer. But let's say that you have a generally functional voice, then the first thing you're going to do to expand your vocal range, the amount of notes that you can sing, is to unlock the head dominant register. So if you already have a functional speaking voice, then actually expanding your range doesn't have to take that long. It may take you one lesson, or it might take you maybe 2 months. It depends. But once you discover your tension dominant register, then you're going to be unlocking 5-6 semitones maybe in one day. Or it can take you maybe 2 months. Of course, this is if you practice regularly. Now, this is important to understand because your voice has different transitions or bridges. Some people call them bridges. And depending on the vocal method that you study, they call it differently. But your mass dominant register, also called your chest voice, goes up to a point in your range that is different for the different kinds of voices. And then after that point, you have to switch to your tension dominant register or your head voice. So at the beginning of your training, when you already have a functional chest voice, you are going to be working on unlocking that head voice, and that will unlock a lot of semitones for you. So as I say, it doesn't have to take that long. So if you don't know how to do it, I actually have a resource for you today that is completely free. If you go to the description below, you're going to find my 3 exercises to expand your vocal range that are designed for you to unlock your main 2 registers of the voice. So go ahead and download it. You practice it every day. In no time, you're going to be discovering those higher frequencies. Now, at the beginning, of course, when you are just exploring your vocal range, don't worry about singing with complete strength and mastery all your notes. that comes later. The first thing you have to do is to discover those notes. Even if at the top you don't sound too strong, don't worry about that, because that is the first step. Now we have come to the second part of this business, and it's the tesitura. So once you have discovered those different registers, which involves working with different muscles in the voice, then you can start working on strengthening them and make those new notes part of your tesitura. And for that, what you're going to be learning to do is to work in a much more differentiated way with your muscles, and you're going to be learning something that you are going to be hearing a lot about. You're going to be learning how to mix your voice. And that is why I prefer to use the mass dominant and tension dominant rather than chest voice and head voice. Because when you are talking about tesitura, then you are talking about percentages of mass and tension. It's not chest, head. As you go higher in the register, the amount of mass decreases, the amount of tension increases until your tension dominant register takes over and it does the majority of the work. Now, tension, by the way, that doesn't mean strain. Tension means your vocal cords are being stretched. That's where tension comes from. Just like a guitar, when you stretch the strings, it sounds higher. Mixing your voice means that your voice goes from low to high in a connected manner. Ah, rather than something like this. Ah, not connected. Or ah, also not connected. The ability of mixing and connecting your voice is what gives you mastery over your vocal range and allows you to later on do more fancy stuff, applying some vocal effects with ease and in a safe manner. Now, how long does it take to develop that mix? After you discover a healthy way of producing mass dominant register, then you expand your range, you discover your two different registers, then you mix. Now, that depends on you, absolutely, and your practice habits. Once you resolve those previous two steps, then it's up to you. This is not only muscle work, but it's also sensation training. So that requires you to be fully present when you practice, and it requires you to practice regularly. And I'm going to give you a few examples. I had a student last year, 2023, that started from absolute scratch. It was an adult student, a male, started from scratch, never did any singing, any music, but he practiced 1 to 2 hours a day, every day, and he did all the exercises I suggested, came to his lesson every single week, did not miss one lesson, and came to my group classes as well. And this student went from 0 to 2.5 octaves in just 8 months. Now, that was particularly impressive, but it did have to do with the frequency of his practice and that he was extremely present in his practice and in the lessons, and he will take notes, he will ask me questions, he will explore at home. So great results, of course. On the other hand, I also have students that come to their weekly lesson but never ever practice, and that's skip lessons. And for those, they can take them 2 years, sometimes more, to be able to mix the voice. So that is up to you. If you practice constantly, if you practice at least 3 times a week with awareness, then you will have more and more control of your voice every single practice. Summarizing, once you have a functional speaking voice, then expanding your range can take you from 1 lesson to maybe 2 months, and mixing your voice can take you another few months. A way that you can train this ability of mixing is by doing vocal glides. As I showed you before, you go from the lowest note you can sing until the higher note, and you try to do it in a connected manner. Without skipping notes in between, without jumping. Summarizing, practice. As any instrument, singing is practice, and it's totally worth it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, because I am always posting content about how to improve your voice really deeply from the inside out, which is a perfect way to develop sustainable singing practice that will allow you to fully be in control of your voice. Take care.